Welcome to a Quadcast exclusive interview with Manhattan Magazine's editors-in-chief. I'm Nick Chiof, and today I'm chatting with Gabs DePinho and Darby Zelaskowski. We're going to talk magazine, creative stuff, existential stuff. But first, how are you guys doing?
Doing well. I mean, as well as someone can be doing, right now. But virtual school is going well and trying to just make the most of it.
Yep, I'm doing well as well. The hybrid learning is very fun with an asterisk.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, fun with an asterisk. This is the asterisk year, as we have all probably heard and emphasized ourselves. Does it count? Does it not? That's a whole rabbit hole in and of itself. You won't have to deal with it for like another few months because you're both seniors. So you're going to be out of here soon. How real does that feel?
So when we think about the fact that the past year of the pandemic has kind of felt like an alternate reality, it's very fake, but at the same time, this looming graduation date is, you wake up and it hits you in the face every day. So when I'm walking to class, walking to Kelly, I'm thinking, oh, this is one of the last times I'm going to do this. And I'm getting too nostalgic about things I didn't even really notice before.
I definitely fluctuate between how real it feels and how fake it feels because, your whole life you're just in school forever. And suddenly if I'm not going to graduate school, I just won't be in school. And when I'm working on job applications, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is someone needs to hire me or else what am I going to do with my life? But then other times, when you're in the thick of it, doing reading for class or writing a paper, it just doesn't feel like there's actually an end at the end of the semester.
I think it's fair to say that when we're in school, we still even though we're 20-somethings now, right? We still feel pretty young. We feel and people still tend to refer to us sometimes as kids. This doesn't feel like the real world. You go to a class and you get talked at for 75 minutes and you do homework. We've been doing that stuff since we were 5 years old. And then suddenly after commencement, we're out in the real world. We have to get jobs. We have to get paid. I don't know. I mean, do you guys feel that there's a certain nostalgia at play here, with college and looking back on it, if that makes any sense?
Oh, absolutely. I think that, Abs was saying, that routine of being in school your whole life, kind of the fact that it's ending feels sad and I guess exciting, but I also like being in school, so it's bittersweet.
Yeah, and you definitely have to think there's nostalgia just because oh my goodness, I can't believe it's been 4 years. And then there's also the weird, pandemic component where it's we kind of got 3-ish years of real college experience. So it's I'm nostalgic for things that I can't do that I did last year, but I'm also nostalgic for my whole experience. So it's kind of this weird double nostalgia situation.
Yeah, and I feel this is the inevitable question since we're all seniors. I think the real question is come May, is that nostalgia really going to pay off? Because as you guys know, commencement was announced to be virtual. What are your guys' thoughts on that? I mean, obviously it's for our safety, but how do you feel about going into a virtual commencement? Do you think it will feel real, I guess, is the main question.
I think it'll feel real in the sense that whoever I'm with, whether it's I'm still at school and I'm watching commencement with my roommates or I'm at home with my parents, I'm watching it with them, we're going to make it feel special. Of course, it's a bummer. I just hope that, they came to this decision after, really considering all of their options. But, virtual commencement's going to happen and, I'm going to have to face the next chapter of my life, whether or not that was a real in-person commencement or no virtual ceremony, So what comes next is coming next, I think, regardless of how that ceremony really goes.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, so I'm from California, so my parents are still, despite it being online, coming here, and there's the fact that there's kind of still that, like, I guess, quote unquote ceremony of them coming and us celebrating in some way, it's going to be good. Granted, I am sad and I wish it were in person, but we make do like we have been for the past however long.
Right. So those are the sorry senior questions out of the way. I'm glad we got those off our chests early on. So some quick like major minor stuff. I mean, you guys are both working on Manhattan Magazine, so I feel like English like is expected, but just tell us a bit about what you study here and all that.
So I'm double majoring in English and peace studies. So a lot of my classes have kind of centered around like sociology and topics on like war and how to prevent it and conflict resolution, stuff like that. So it's been a nice kind of mix of reading cool books and then also thinking about how we fix really huge problems in the world. I'm also a Dash minor, which is that new program. It's Digital Arts and Humanities. And that's been a very interesting experience. I didn't really want to join, and now it's become one of my favorite parts of my academic career. So we take classes, like we work with virtual reality programs, and I've learned about like map making, and I now have a new passion for graphic design. So it's been a very good mixed bag of education.
So wait, hold up. You're a double major and a minor.
Yeah.
Wow, so am I. I guess we're both masochists then. I have never known there to be another double major and minor on campus until now. Wow, this is amazing. Kindred spirits.
Well, here we are.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've had to deal with that super, like, it's like building a 1,000-piece puzzle, trying to put your schedule together to get exactly enough credits for everything.
Oh, that was the fun part. That was the fun part, kind of to mix and match and say, okay, I'll knock this off here, knock that off here. I mean, last semester was fun because I did 2 senior seminars at once, but like,
oh my God.
Hey, I got it. Yeah, no, it was, hey, I had a fun time at least. I ended up satisfied with it. So, yeah.
That's great.
Did not even know that there was a number of my kind out there. That's really great. What about you guys?
So you guys have me beat. I'm only a double major.
Oh,
you gotta get off the call.
I know. I gotta. Ma's cool. But
what are you doing with your life, jeez?
I'm an English and communication double major, and in communication, my concentration is journalism. I kind of like to say communication is my practical major, and English is like my fun one. Communication really is giving me the skill sets for like the career I want to pursue, and just directly correlates to a career in journalism. But English is, I've always loved reading and writing, so it kind of like is that soft spot I can't let go of. So those classes have been like a really great source of joy, and I'm really glad I was able to double.
Yeah, it's funny because I kind of went the same justification. I also double in English and communication, and the way I thought about it is like the English is the what and why of what you're creating, and the how is like the communication is the how to practically communicate it and get it out there. And it's probably what will get you a job. I'm in media production, so like instead of journalism, it'd be more of a TV kind of situation. But yeah, that's pretty cool. All right, you both have a lot on your plates on top of being the editors-in-chief of Manhattan Magazine, which is pretty impressive. Now, for those in the audience who don't know, maybe some ignorant freshmen watching, why don't you just describe Manhattan Magazine's like mission statement? What's Manhattan Mag all about?
I think the best way to describe Manhattan Magazine is like as a literary arts publication. We're just looking for any and all creative writing, so just non-academic writing. It can still be, a real story from your life, just it's not written as like a formal academic paper, but we're looking for, poetry, short stories. You can give like a, 1-act play, script, just honestly anything that's really expressive in writing. But we're also interested in the visual side of art. There's a lot that can be said in words, but the old saying, picture is worth 1,000 words. So we do publish photography and art, whether it's drawings and paintings that have been scanned or it's digital art. There's a healthy, I think, balance between the writing and the art. And, just kind of, we put it together and it looks real pretty and people are moved by the writing. And it's really special, I think, that we get to have this on a small campus like this.
Yeah, that was a very beautiful, comprehensive description of the magazine. So all I have to say is it's like a catch-all for those things that you create and you want someone to see them, but you don't really know what to do with them. And maybe you're like too embarrassed to put on your Instagram story or something, and it's really nice. And it gives you that warm feeling when you have a physical copy of something that you're featured in and it's your art, something that's special to you.
Cool. Now, how long have you been working on the magazine, like respectively? Like, I mean, you must have been at it for a while to be, the boss, but like how long in numbers?
I've been with the magazine, I believe, since my sophomore year. So I was on the editing board my sophomore and junior year, and then at the end of last year, the old editor-in-chief, she was looking to enlist the help of people who had already been on the board.
Yeah, I also joined sophomore year as well, and was a submissions editor with Darby for the past 2 years. And then, we both expressed interest in taking it over. And then, they were like, wait a second, this is probably easier when you give it to two people. So that's how we're here working together. And honestly, I don't know how any one person did this alone. So I'm very glad I get to work with Darby.
It's good to be on a team.
So what compelled you to join in the first place, like in your sophomore year? What drew you to Manhattan Magazine in the first place?
I think, in high school, my high school also had a very similar magazine, and I was on the staff for 2 years, kind of the same deal. And then senior year, I was also co-editor-in-chief with a friend, and I just really loved that experience. And I've always just loved creative writing and poetry, and that was kind of like my quarterback in the championship game moment in high school, was that magazine. So when I came to college and I saw there was an opportunity, so I found it a year late, to still kind of experience that joy that to create this type of magazine brings me. I was like, I have to apply to the staff. I have to do this because it's just so much fun, and I don't regret it at all. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I came to school before I was involved with peace studies and that kind of stuff. I was very, very dead set on the image of me in a New York office building, editing novels and doing that whole thing. So I thought, as soon as I saw that there was a literary magazine, I thought, oh my God, I have to do that, and I'm going to join this board. And since then, my career goals have changed, but the experience of Manhattan Magazine has changed as well, where it's become less of I want to be an editor and more of I really love the work that students on campus are producing, and it's just really amazing to be a part of compiling them and getting to experience all of what people are doing.
Now let's talk about some of the stuff that you guys like to produce and really create and put out there. We talked a bit about visual art or, writing. What do you guys prefer to really create? Or say, for example, submit to the magazine yourselves? What kind of, is nonfiction, poetry, photography, short fiction? Your wheelhouse, in more succinct terms.
So I usually prefer to be on the editing side of things, and I'm not huge on creative writing myself. But that being said, I think that my choice would be the nonfiction essay, honestly. As much as personal writing is not really, I don't like to write about my own stories. I do like when there's that sort of academic overarching theme of you need to accomplish this through telling a story. I really like doing that. And also, as of last semester, I've found that I really, really love playing with Illustrator and Photoshop and doing graphic design. I'm no good at it, but I really like it. So I would say that that's kind of my medium as of right now.
I submit to the magazine every year, but my wheelhouse, or my safe space, I guess, is poetry. Full embarrassing fact, I've been writing poems with quotes around that since I was in the 5th grade. And I definitely have improved as a writer just over the time I've spent doing it, and even just taking Dr. Rosinski's poetry workshop class, just that really changed my approach to poetry. So definitely love and feel very comfortable with poetry. And this semester I'm taking a photography class, and I'm kind of really loving it. I think it stretches my creativity in a really productive way because I've never been visually creative before. Like I did art classes in high school, but like this is a new form of visual creativity, and it's also visual creativity is something I kind of abandoned, but in college. So this is kind of an exciting time, and I might submit a photo or two. I don't know. I'm feeling excited, feeling spicy this year.
Wow, and all this art could really just go to Manhattan Magazine. This is kind of a wink and a nudge, I'm just saying, So the toughest struggle for a lot of creators is to just start creating in the first place, like, so, for example, writer's block or something like that. What are your personal experiences with just, trying to get something creative going in the first place?
I found like if I'm doing it on my own time, so it's not an assignment for like a course or something, I just cannot force it to happen. Like I just have to accept that like today it's just not happening or right now, and just kind of like, okay, like maybe I want to listen to music or just journal a little bit to figure out like what I'm thinking about better. But if it's just for a class, you just kind of have to figure it out. You have to figure it out fast. Like if you have a poem due by midnight on the forum so your classmates can comment on it, you have to write something. And sometimes that deadline concept, maybe this is why I like want to be a journalist, is because I like having deadlines for my work. Extreme deadlines, but sometimes that deadline or like that concept, like I promised a friend they'd read a draft by tomorrow, like really just lights a fire under your butt. And whether it's good or not doesn't matter. It's just that you got something done. So I don't know. Sometimes external pressure really works for me, which is not the most motivating thing I think I could have said, but it's just honest.
Oh, no, it makes sense. The deadline keeps you in order, like I can think of many times where I've had like a paper due the next day, or like I've had like a creative writing assignment due the next day. So basically I just chug an energy drink and get at it till like 2 a.m. Doesn't mean they'll be good, but like the deadline really is a motivating factor for sure.
I definitely have to agree with the deadline as motivating factor. Also, I don't know if you guys heard that ginormous crash, but something very heavy just fell off our wall, and now I'm convinced there's a ghost in our room. But that being said, so I deal with writer's block by, I don't know, when I'm doing creative writing, I agree with Gabs. I definitely can't force it. I'll be up, or I'll wake up like 3 a.m. and I'll be like, I have to write something right now, and I jot down a couple lines and then I put it somewhere and I forget about it for 6 months. Then I go back and maybe I'll expand upon it. But I think if you really have decided that you want to write something, it's a matter of, for me at least, I usually like to go to a place where I feel not necessarily at peace, but just comfortable. So I have a couple favorite coffee shops at home I like to go to, or, maybe there's a specific bench in the park you go to, just a place where you feel, not to sound cliche, but the most yourself, or the most comfortable with yourself. And then sometimes you just have to force it, write a couple horrible lines for a little while, and then something good is bound to come out of it eventually. But academically, I'm definitely the type of person who the deadline is looming, and then the night before or a couple days before, I'm chugging like a pot of coffee and just powering through it and hoping I can keep my eyes open until I'm done.
Now, there have been people within the last year who have kind of said like, oh, writer's block and stuff like that, it can't be an issue right now because there are no outside distractions because we're in quarantine, We're just stuck in our houses, and, if there's any time to write the great American novel, it's now. How much credence do you give to that idea? Does that hold any water for you? Is the world going nuts?
So for me personally, I have to disagree wholeheartedly with that. And I am so happy for the people who have found a way to channel their creative energy throughout this time and have spent all these hours locked inside doing something with it. But in my experience, it seems that I've had many, many ideas, and I've executed so few of them. So it's just, I don't know if it's the monotony of life that's kind of kept it bottled up, but I don't know. The few things I've made I've liked, but I've definitely had a hard time kind of putting it into action. So maybe I have all these ideas sitting around in my head, and once the world, not to say opens back up again, but once things kind of go back to their natural state, maybe I'll start doing something with them.
I definitely agree with Darby. I personally struggled a lot to be creative right now, but Taylor Swift put out 2 albums. I mean, like, it's everyone has a different, I think, capacity for their creativity, or different like circumstances they need to be creative in and stuff. And for me, like, I don't really know what my circumstances are, but like it's important to take a moment to recognize like our lives changing entirely, like everything we knew and were used to and doing like day in and day out just suddenly stopping is kind of traumatic. Like, even if you're a person who handles emotions in life and everything very well, like, and then the uncertainty that came with that, like, we're here a year later and we still have no clue what 6 months from now is going to look like, and there's no promise, even with the vaccine rollout happening, like, who knows? And so, like, for me, it's been, you know, like, there's like 2 things. It's like sometimes that overwhelming feeling that the pandemic has brought into my life, and that just disorder has been a great source of inspiration. And then at other times, it has just been the biggest block like in my life. And so, like Darby said, I'm so happy for all those people who found like who channeled their experiences and their pain or their joy, like, or whatever they were experiencing in quarantine, into something creative. I definitely like have produced way less writing than I was like in the months leading up to quarantine. Just throughout like one whole year, I'm producing less than I did in all of January and February of 2020. But you know, when I have those moments, I kind of revel in them a little bit, because that's, you know, I love writing, I love my poetry, and so sometimes when I have that kick, I just get real excited and I produce one good poem, and then I have like a line that I'm sitting with for like 6 weeks, like Darby was saying. But yeah, I think it's important to just recognize that like it's not just like, oh, we all have the time. Like, yes, we all have the time to do everything now, but we also have a different emotional life than we did when we didn't have the time. And I think that affects creativity.
Yeah, and you mentioned, you know, this has been kind of like a traumatic year, especially considering like how time, in a lot of ways, has really lost its meaning. You know, it's been about a year since we have, as of recording this, I should specify, that we had to go home and do classes remotely for the rest of the spring 2020 semester. So, yeah, no, that completely makes sense. In this kind of chaotic, seemingly constantly melting down world that we live in, what kind of stories do you think the world needs to hear right now?
I'm of the mindset that like I don't want my TV shows to have a COVID-19 plot line right now. So I don't know if anyone feels the same way. But I don't think it's productive to say no one should be writing about like what's happening right now. I don't know. I think the kind of stories that the world needs to hear right now are the kind of stories that should be being told all the time. Like, you know, the hard ones that, you know, call attention to some maybe issues in society, and, you know, the happy ones where, you know, the guy gets the girl at the end of the story or whatever is happening. I think there just needs to be a healthy balance. And I don't know, I'm definitely like, I could use some poetry that, or writing or whatever, that, you know, also is grappling with the same trauma that I think I am, and we all are, COVID-19, because it makes you feel, I think, a little less alone when you read someone else kind of writing about the same thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't really want the, you know, NBC sitcom about life in quarantine, but I do think that there is a lot of of potential and a lot of beauty that can come out of the feelings that we've been experiencing the past year. And I mean, they're really not feelings that have never been felt before, but they're novel to people in our generation and all of those experiencing this right now. Like, I think that a lot of us don't really know what to do with it. So like I was saying, it would be really great to have some writing or some different kinds of media that do explore those feelings and put a name to what wacky stuff we've been going through. But yeah, I think also the past year has started or continued and emphasized a lot of really, really important conversations about the structure of America and flawed systems and things like that. And so I think there is going to be a surge, and I also am hoping to see a surge in media that focuses on that and continues this conversation and makes it accessible for people who aren't in school or people, who don't have access to that kind of information elsewhere. So it's just a matter of creating art that's going to be educational and, palatable for a wide audience.
Right. And it's like Gabs mentioned, there should be a balance, because I feel like coming out of this, we'll need a lot of healthy escapism, like a very healthy amount. Like, the Tom and Jerry movie came out recently, and that did better than like the emotional story Raya and the Last Dragon by, Big Dog Disney. Because, sometimes people just want to like see a cat get hit with a frying pan. Like, that makes you feel young, makes you feel happy, It's a good escape.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, like Disney Plus just added the entire Muppet Show from the 70s, which has been the only thing getting me through and pushing me towards the finale of the semester. So I love my escapism so much.
Gabs, what do you tend to escape to? If while on the topic of escapism, like what do you kind of do in your off time,
Oh God, escapism. So I'm doing like a PowerPoint night with friends, which is like we're making PowerPoints and we're presenting, about different random things. And I've chosen my topic is going to be my emotional support shows and me rating them. So I also very much, I have like, and they're all shows I watched like in middle school or earlier. Mm-hmm. And I just go back to them and I'm like cringing and I like pause the episode so many times. So I'm like, I hate this, but there's just something so comforting about something that's familiar and unfamiliar because I don't remember all the details. And just sometimes there's new shows that are like teeny boppy, like I'm so not the target audience, but I'm watching it and loving it anyway. And I think it's just comforting because what those kinds of stories are like. And I love like my high art, like I love my, deep and meaningful Dead Poets Society movies and stuff. But sometimes like when I'm trying to power through a take-home midterm, I just need to like take a break and turn on one of those like teeny bop emotional support shows and just check out for 25 minutes,
No, I completely understand. And, the reason why I'm, starting out with that escapism, like very light, this question, is because, this is what I'm going to ask now. As a creator, what do you fear the most? We ask the hard questions on the Quadcast. That's what we do here.
I think I might explain this poorly, but I think that my biggest fear is not being understood or at my point or any point really, because I'm a firm believer that the author's point is not necessarily the point that you're going to understand, and that's a good thing. I'm just very scared of something I produce not having any sort of effect or coming across as having any sort of meaning to someone. So I remember there was one time, I think it was freshman year of college or something, I turned in an essay and there was this paragraph and my professor circled it and she said, I have no idea what you're saying here. And I was like, what? I thought that I poured my heart and soul into this and I thought that I just, solved all the problems in the world. And so it's just that fear of not reaching anybody. It's kind of scary.
I get that. No, because it's the idea of like, you don't want to like hold your audience's hand, but you don't want your own message to kind of get lost in the translation. You want to say what you have to say and that be heard. It doesn't have to be what the audience ends up accepting, but you just want it to come across. And that could be very difficult and terrible anxiety to work with as an artist.
Exactly.
I think mine is a little different. I have like kind of two fears. One of them is like I'm afraid of being considered pretentious at any point because I strive not to be, and I don't ever, it's like, I don't know, I feel like I've used pretentious as an insult before, and so I'd be afraid to be pretentious by accident. And then there's also this quote by Tim Kreider that's now like kind of a meme, but it's, if we want the rewards of being loved, we have to submit to the mortifying ordeal of being known. And that mortifying ordeal of being known, like I get very personal, like in my poetry and in my writing, and just because for me, that is the greatest source of creativity. I praise Mary Oliver for being able to write about, nature so beautifully as she can, but that's just not where I feel like my wealth of creativity is, in those external sources. So for me, in order to share my writing and get that reward of it being shared, there's also this other side of it where it's like that is being vulnerable, and that is letting people know me and know my pain and know my joy. And that's just terrifying. Like the idea that like someone's reading this and they know me very intimately, and maybe more intimately than some people who I actually like hang out with on a regular basis. And so yeah, just being known through my writing, it's like a beautiful thing at the same time, but it's absolutely horrifying and terrifying.
Well, to turn on its flip side, though, I mean, we do create, for a purpose. We do find ways to overcome that fear. What motivates you guys to put your work out there and to, to create and write and, all that stuff?
I think on the flip side, for me, the motivating factor for writing, besides a deadline, as we mentioned earlier, is just that it's something that brings me joy. It's something that allows me to process my life in meaningful ways. And I know, you read a good poem or you read a good book or even a personal essay, and like you feel seen and like you feel understood, or sometimes it gives you the language to understand yourself better or whatever. And I don't think I put my writing out there because I think I can do that, but I know that like, okay, if one person reads this and thinks like, hey, I felt that before, or like that was cool, or like that was brave of that person, like I don't know, it's just like nice to know that there's a community that wants, even just within Manhattan Magazine, like there's a community that wants to support me and will support me even when I get hyper personal. But also, as I said before, they have to know me, and that's terrifying.
Okay, so I'm glad that you asked this question because it reminded me of my second fear, and that is people reading my writing. So I'm thankful for Gabs' answer because I need some advice on how to share your writing. That's not something that I have figured out how to be able to do yet in my life. But I'm more apt to share the visual art kind of things that I make. And I think that's because I feel more removed from that aspect, because I kind of sell myself as an English major, as someone who loves literature and loves writing. And so there's that fear of people know that I study this. So if it's bad, then it's really bad, So I don't know. Visual art I can do sometimes, not all the time. But the writing, I'll talk to Gabs about that. I need some help.
Well, fine, man. You don't have to have your consultation session with her on this call. Be free after we finish here. Just seek her advice and have a long, in-depth conversation about it. Okay, so on that cheery note, let's look to the future, which I hopefully is optimistic and bright, and we're done with all this current stuff right now. What are your creative hopes 1 year from now with Manhattan College well behind you guys?
Ooh, that is the burning question. I think that I'm coming to terms with the fact that I might want to teach in some capacity. So I'm applying for some programs such as Teach for America. I'm not applying for Teach for America specifically, but there are programs like that where you go away for a year and you're teaching in low-income communities. So I'm hoping that I get to do that. in the next year, and then that will kind of help me get grounded and figure out what my next step is. Be that teaching, be that joining the Peace Corps, doing something like that. I'm kind of up in the air with everything in my life right now. So, but my next step would probably be joining some sort of teaching program.
I guess for me, like focusing on I guess career for a second, I have no clue what I'm doing next year. I've applied to grad schools, I've applied to fellowships, I've applied to jobs, and I'm just going to see what sticks. So check back with me on May 23rd, which is graduation day. But in terms of the creativity and all the stuff we've been talking about so far, I just don't want to stop being creative. I don't know if that means suddenly photography is my jam all the time, every day, all day, or if that means I'm back to finger painting or whatever it is I'm doing. I just always want to have or be engaged in some creative outlet in my life, because I just think my professional life gets better when I have an outlet like that, and I enjoy my life better when I have an outlet like that. So that's my goal. Just always have some form of creativity.
I think that's pretty sound advice, because I remember when I graduated high school, an old English teacher of mine told me that the best way to write is to never stop thinking about it, never stop writing. Even though it's hard, you have to keep your mind on it. Your mind always has to be generating ideas. You just stay active and the creative juices keep flowing. And the mistake I made my first few years of college is I got so consumed with school and everything like that, I didn't even give it a second thought. It took a lot to really rediscover my passion to be creative and, get my content out there. And I just wish I followed her advice sooner. So thank you guys for asking a question, which I'm sure is on the minds of every 20-something-year-old Zoomer college student looking to the future. Thank you for tolerating that. Now, what advice would you give to aspiring writers out there, or aspiring artists, I should say, who may well be in your shoes circa 3 years ago, say to the sophomore who's considering joining Manhattan Magazine or something like that? What advice would you give to them?
I guess I've noticed in my life, I'm on the Enneagram, I'm a type 6, which basically means you have anxiety. And I've noticed in my life that I do the things that scare me anyway. And so if you're scared or anxious or unsure of what you want to do, I think the best advice is just do it. And, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Submit your writing. If you don't get published, it just means we have a huge pool of submissions. Submit your art. We don't get enough art submissions, so please submit your art. But
Please.
I think just do the thing, just try the thing. The worst thing that can happen is it doesn't go as well as you wanted it to, and that either means you keep trying the thing, keep doing the thing, or try and find some new thing. And I think that applies to just even if you're writing for yourself and writing in private, you just gotta keep doing the thing.
Yeah, I think throughout the past few years, one of the most, and it's kind of a simple philosophy, but something that's become near and dear to my heart and that I just really want to express to every single person I speak to is that every mind is a good mind, including your own. And that sounds, I don't know, it sounds kind of juvenile, but really I think the thing that keeps people from submitting the most is obviously self-doubt. But if you think about the media and the art and the writing and the poetry that you love, you can do that exact same thing. What you want to create and what you have in you is going to have the exact same effect on somebody else. And I think that it is always worth it to try. It is always worth it. Even if it doesn't work out, you've now proven to yourself that you can do it and you can make the effort and you can try again. And it's all good thinking.
All right, pretty sound advice. Segueing from that profound topic, let's get to our favorite subject on the Quadcast. Plug your stuff. do your plug, advertise, do your thing, guys.
So I think that we all have some sort of poem, some sort of photo we took that we think is really cool, really good. or we wrote an essay that we really like, or a short story, something like that, Manhattan Magazine is the place where you can send that work. The stuff that you create, we want to read it. We want to look at it. We want to experience it. And we want to put it in our magazine. It's easy. All you have to do is attach it to an email to Manhattan Magazine at manhattan.edu. And we're going to look at it. And then there's a party at the end of the year, which is super cool, socially distanced and safe and all that. You know it. But we really want to see your work. And you should be confident in the work you produce.
I would just like to chime in. Our deadline on our flyer says March 19th, but we're going to extend it to March 26th just to give people more time. But yeah, as Darby said, we want to see your stuff and we want you to feel like we're trustworthy people with your work, because we know like it's a very, as we've clearly discussed, it's a very vulnerable act to share your work with other people and to potentially put it up for publication. So we recognize that. We appreciate anyone submitting, for doing that. And, we just want to celebrate as many students as possible and give them the space to, feel that joy that like I started feeling the first time I worked for a literary magazine. So yeah, please submit. And if you submit and you like the idea of being the editor, we kind of do editors like in the fall, but definitely reach out, like put yourself on our radar. We won't be editors in chief next year, so we won't be picking the submissions team, but definitely put yourself on our radar. Like even if you just want to do what Darby does and just read and not submit, like put yourself on our radar, please.
Please.
All right. So first off, I appreciate the whole like advertising spiel you went into, Darby. I wasn't even expecting that. You just went right at the call to action. I was just expecting like you drop your socials, here are the deadlines.
Oh.
But no, you just went right at it. Nice. No, it's welcome. It's welcome. Okay, that's just about a wrap. It's been a pleasure having you guys on. I hope you were thoroughly entertained.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
Thank you so much for having us. We said that at the exact same time.
We're just on the same wavelength.
Great minds. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, we did an interview for like 40 minutes, and not once did you guys talk over each other. But except with this excitation, hey, we had a fun time, and I'm glad you guys did. With that said, submit to Manhattan Magazine. It's a great publication. I'm going to get some work in there myself. So, I mean, if you want a positive role model, I'm the last person to look to. But I mean, I'll put my stuff out there. But yeah, with that said, I'm Nick Chiof, and this has been the Quadcast.